Always a delight to welcome Steve Bone to Pompey Sound. Steve is a cherished wordsmith amongst a great many other qualities and able to turn his hand effortlessly to tabloid, to broadsheet. But he would have needed to be Alfred Lord Tennyson to paint for us the poetry of Rob Atkinson versus Derby, and indeed Rob Atkinson versus himself.
Yes.
But I'm going to ask him to have a go.
It was, the best, I think the best little headline or phrase I've seen, and I think it was Chris Wise on Twitter, the BBC commentator, who sometimes gets involved in Pompey things, just quite simply said, Rob of the Rovers.
Yeah.
Not mind Roy of the Rovers, it was Rob of the Rovers, wasn't it?
You couldn't make it up.
He was a hero at one end, then he was the villain at the other end, and then he was the hero at the right end again.
I mean,
just at the right time, and then he revealed afterwards that he'd had sore calves, he'd had a chest infection,
yes.
He'd had everything under the sun.
He couldn't hardly walk off the pitch.
No, and let's be honest, for a lone player to put himself forward to play, want to play, when he's probably shouldn't have done, is quite something, really, isn't it? You want your players to have that sort of outlook, but you're not always going to get it. You know, there will be some that will sit around and tell the physio they're not fit right for the game, and they won't play the game. And especially, when you're on loan and you're thinking of going back to Bristol City at the end of the season, and you want to be fit and you want to show them a good side. Hats off to him.
Yeah,
really, and what an important point it may yet prove to be.
It could be the point, couldn't it?
Could. Not so much for the 1 point that we got, but for the 2 that Derby didn't get.
There's that.
That they're right on our tails, aren't they? There's a couple of other teams there as well. It's still very close down there, so could yet be vital. I still think we'll stay up by more than a point. I think we'll be okay still, but you never know. Could be the that last goal, that second equaliser could be the one.
By the way, the Musinos have been talking about the stat that you gave us last time you were on about there being no team in the Championship at the moment who is either safe from going down,
yes,
or stands no chance whatsoever of going up. So that's a nice.
I've seen all sorts of people have latched onto that.
Yes, well done you. But I've got one for you, which I'll do now. Obviously, it's coming at you out of the blue, but I know that never seems to throw you off your stride.
Okay, you try me.
If you take the 10 teams at the bottom, starting with QPR, who are vulnerable, even though they're way above us, but they are still vulnerable.
Could still go, yeah.
You've got 10 teams, including us. Everybody plays a 6-pointer. Everybody plays at least one team in the relegation zone.
Yeah.
Okay? Except for Preston, Hull and Derby, all of whom play 3 6-pointers.
3.
Out of their 4 remaining games, 3 of them are against fellow relegation strugglers.
That's amazing, really, isn't it? To still have that many 6-pointers to come at this stage of the season.
Absolutely. They're playing nothing but 6-pointers, which means that teams will be dropping points around us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I haven't looked too far beyond Friday for other teams, but I have looked at Good Friday's fixtures, and Derby v Luton leaps out at you straight away. So they're playing each other, and there will be there we go. As you say, Derby have obviously got a couple of others coming up as well. Hull have still got to play us, haven't they?
Derby go to Hull on Saturday the 26th, the last but one game of the season, and then Hull come to us on the last day of the season. So Hull have got all these 6-pointers. Derby have got all these 6-pointers.
This is what you've got to remember when it's a relegation battle as opposed to a promotion battle. Teams, you won't get many teams in that relegation battle winning even 2 in a row.
No.
Your teams might pick up 1 win out of the last 4, but you won't get many suddenly finding a run of wins as you would if you're at the top of the table. If you look at the teams at the top, your Sheffield United, your Burnley and your Leeds, they just need to keep winning, because if they don't win, one of the others will. But it's a bit different at the bottom, which is, we might already have enough points to stay up. You don't know. 46 might do it, but we can't sort of relax and think that might be the case.
Are we allowed to use this circumstance to nourish our optimism, or does it in fact also feed our favoured pessimism? because there will be teams around us who will necessarily be collecting points.
Yes.
We have to hope that
that's true. It works both ways.
we have to hope that the teams that have got a bunch of 6-pointers lose and draw.
Yes,
of course.
Because for every Derby Hull game, one of them may well lose, but that means the other one's going to win.
Yeah,
you got to hope for a load of 0-0 draws in those games generally, haven't you? We're in a nicer position of being 4 points ahead of the bottom three. If you're Derby, looking at all these games and working out the mathematics of it all, and you're only 1 point ahead of Cardiff, who are 22nd at the moment, then it's a bit closer. But of course, we could end Good Friday being 1 point clear of the bottom three, so you soon get dragged right back into it. Were we 10 points clear of the bottom three after we beat Leeds?
Yes, I think so.
It was sort of had a spring in their step down Goldsmith Avenue, didn't they? After that, and the sun was out, and we thought, it'll be all right now.
It's all over,
and it's not really happened since. Only one win, I think, since then, isn't it, against Blackburn? So. It's they're keeping us on the edge of our seats as ever.
The phrase goes they're keeping us honest. I don't know if that is in any way an accurate use of the Queen's English, but the King's English. I beg your pardon. Well, he's only just English, isn't he? He's mostly German, but we'll come back to that. And other sides who are struggling have got some big games coming up. Stoke, for example, have got to go to Leeds. Oxford are at home to Leeds. I'm not saying Leeds are unbeatable. Don't we know that they're not? But, and then true, Plymouth are going to Middlesbrough. Cardiff got to go to Sheffield United. These are teams that are all striving for playoffs. They will give nothing away. They're all going to give it their best shot, I'm inclined to say the fixtures list just about works out in our favour. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think it does if you accept that Watford, Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday, the next three that we're playing, not in that order, I don't think, they're all very mid-table. They're not going up and they're not coming down. But that doesn't always follow that those teams are going to be easier to play against. I mean, they're not going to be fighting for every ball. They're not going to be kicking it into the corner with 5 minutes to go if they're 1-0 up necessarily. But they could be playing with a bit of freedom. They might think, pressure's off now. Yeah. Let's go and show what we can do on a nice sunny day on a nice pitch.
Let's do some step overs.
Better. Yeah. So it can work. It can work both ways. If you try, the minute you try to predict that all the teams in mid-table will lose their games and teams at the top and bottom won't, then you're on to a loser. Probably you won't. Yeah. You might get some of those right, but you won't get all of them right. So it remains difficult to predict.
We've been talking to Norwich fans on Pompey Sound elsewhere this week, and they are bored.
Are they? Yeah, I can imagine.
Their season, as far as they're concerned, and they might be wrong, but as far as they're concerned, the season's over, and they don't have any great hopes for next season either, because money don't buy you. What's the song?
No,
money don't buy you nothing. Money don't buy you anything.
Best things in life are free, or something.
Something like that.
They've slipped. When you think they were in the playoffs last year, weren't they? Along with Leeds,
they were going to go up. They were guaranteed to go up.
Yeah, and now they've not really been in that battle all season, have they? I think they were. Wasn't that long ago they were maybe eighth or ninth, but they have, by their standards, and they were in the Premier League not that long ago, not too many years ago, for quite a long time.
Yeah,
they were a bit of a yo-yo club before that, weren't they? But they would not have started this season expecting to be 13th with 4 games to go. And it doesn't, from what you say, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of expectation or hope that they'll be much better off next season. I mean,
as you quite rightly say, they may play with their sleeves rolled down and play a bit of Barcelona sort of thing.
Yes, let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Can I throw another thing at you, which caught our eye? I dare say you've read up on it too. It's quite an eye opener. The FA have published certain statistics that show that in the Championship, Pompey spent the second least amount of money on agents' fees.
Yeah, I did see
600,000 though. 600,000?
Yeah, it's a lot of money, isn't it?
You and I, we could retire on that, couldn't we? I mean, that's a lot of dough, unless you compare it to Leeds United.
Yes. Did I see somebody say that what Leeds United have spent on agents is more than the whole playing budget for quite a few clubs in the Championship?
Correct.
Probably including ours.
Correct.
Which is just
18 million they spent on agents' fees.
Yeah. And you kind of think, how is that sustainable? For if clubs in the division that we are now in are spending that much money on agents, you then have to say, well, how much are they spending on players then? How much are they paying players and paying to buy players? Millions more.
And what do they do all day? What do they do all day? They negotiate a 2-year, 3-year contract.
Yeah.
And that obviously takes all their time and effort for about, what, a week?
Yeah. I said in response to one of the tweets about it I saw, I think my main takeaway from this is I'm in the wrong job.
Yes.
We should all have trained as football agents.
I was saying that to myself. I've always said that if I come back again, if there is anything in reincarnation and I come back again, I would like to be a football manager. But I'm changing that now. I'm looking at all my options now, and I'd quite like to be a football agent because you get to do nothing but sit on the deck of your yacht off Monaco and wait for the cheques to come in every month.
Yeah, you need
as
to
your
be good,
percentage of whatever your players earned.
Yeah, you need to be good at having meetings with football chief execs. You need to. I suppose you probably need a bit of a poker face, in your dealings. There are certain skills you need as a football agent.
Bribery, bribery, backhanders.
Oh dear, you're making me cough now. The cough's come back.
Sorry about that.
But no, that's all right. But yeah, it is hard to work out how there has become such an industry, such a multi-million-pound industry of agents representing players, and at the end of the day, having talks that players themselves could have. Young players.
That's how it used to be, didn't it?
Used to go along with their parents, didn't they?
Parents?
If they were young enough. Used to take, 16-year-old Alan Knight would have taken mum and dad along to talk to Jimmy Dickinson at Pompey about what the contract they might offer.
Well, they'd take their brother-in-law along. He's a second-hand car dealer. He knows about negotiating. Where did it start? Somewhere out there is the decaying corpse of the person who was the first ever football agent.
Must be, yeah.
But I don't remember when it came in. I just remember it became a normal part of the conversation that these guys had agents. And football was swamped with them. Everybody who was anybody had an agent. You had to have an agent.
Yeah.
It just...
I wonder if it took off around the time that the money side of things took off, with Sky and the Premier League area and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I can't think that there was much of a... clearly there were football agents before that, but I wonder if there was anything like as many. And I wonder if they were earning anything like as much money. But... and clubs, and it would seem from these tables of clubs and what they spend that clubs just accept it. It's part of the game, and it's part of the expenditure that they need to sort of weigh into their budgets. But that must be difficult to do, because until you know which player you're going to try to sign 6 months down the line, and you don't know which agent you're going to deal with, and until you deal with them, you don't know what sort of percentage of what you're paying out is going to have to go to the agent. So. It's very odd, isn't it? But no, I think all fans will think the same thing. Why on earth is my club and all these other clubs paying out that much to agents?
Absolutely. Because the thing about agents is that they are basically parasitical, aren't they? I don't mean that in an offensive way. I mean that in a purely sort of scientific, veterinarian way. They don't. They live off others' ability.
No living.
But I guess they cut a better deal for their client, is how they would see it, and possibly they do. Do you, like I, take comfort from the fact that John Messina, having been chair of the PFA, he knows his way around football people, behind the scenes, inside out. He must have had to broker so many negotiations between club, player and agent in his time at the PFA.
That's true.
That
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, he's got the background.
He wouldn't be taken for a ride very easily, would he? He would have seen sort of both sides of the fence in a way in his PFA role, wouldn't he? He would have represented players, and he would have been involved in cases involving agents as well. Yeah, that's a good point actually. So I'm sure I don't suppose now, as head coach, he generally gets too involved in those sort of negotiations.
He says he doesn't, but he's at the end of the corridor if Rich Hughes and that lot want to pick his brains, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm sure he would be happy to get involved if he had to. He would, because as far as we know, he would be involved at the outset in telling others which players he wants and which type of players he wants. But with the nitty gritty of it, you wouldn't think with such a network of, director of football and others on the recruitment side, he would be needed in that side of things. As you say, probably gets involved when he needs to.
Yeah. I do see him as a manager. I know it's an old-fashioned term and we're supposed to say head coach, but I see John Messino, because of his range of experience and talent.
Yes, he's a man manager.
I think so. After every home game, I know that he does his press interviews, he talks to his players, and then he comes to his little office that he's got at Fratton Park. I think his main office is at the training ground, but he has an office at Fratton Park, and there he holds meetings, first of all with his coaching staff to talk about the game that's just been, and then he talks to his wider staff, including the recruitment team, and other folk involved, medical people and everything. That takes him through till about 7:30 in the evening. Yeah. And then he has the final wave of visitors, our friends and family. Yeah. And he works his way methodically through all those layers of responsibilities, and he does it tirelessly and cheerfully. Yeah. And he's got a handshake and a smile for absolutely everybody. And what did you think of the game? As if we know, but he does. Yeah,
he's very good at dealing with people, isn't he?
Consummate.
You can hear. I always listen to his to his post-match interview. The one he does live, sort of half an hour after the game. And whatever has happened on the pitch, whether we've won 5-0 or lost 5-0, or drawn 2-2 like we did last week, and there's been all sorts of injury chaos, he's always so measured. Answers everything. Doesn't shy away from a question. Answers everything. Answers it well. It's very difficult for if your average fan is listening to one of his interviews after the game, very difficult for them to throw their hands up in horror at anything he said and say, what's he talking about? Because he's quite honest. If Pompey played badly, he'll say so. He won't. He's not one to sort of out individual players, is he? Which I think is quite right in today's football arena. So he sort of will protect his players in that way after a bad performance.
Yes.
But no, he takes everything in his stride so well, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he sort of says, he seems to read the game the way the fans saw the game, or at least that's what he reflects in. He'll say we were appalling in the first half. Yeah, we got it all wrong, and I don't know why. I'm going to have to think about that. He says things that endear him, but in a very modern way. And speaking about modern, I mean, there are still managers around who tend to sort of say, "The boy done good. It was a game of two halves. He couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo, that sort of thing." And speaking of which, I see Neil Warnock's thinking of coming back into the game.
I was ahead of you there, and I think I knew you were going to come on to Neil Warnock.
Go on then.
Cardiff talking about getting him into the last 4 games and replacing their manager, and I see their manager today has given an interview in which he is, after Cardiff lost to a latish goal at home to Stoke last weekend, and I think it was a bit toxic and there was a lot of booing and you're not fit to wear the shirt and all that. The Cardiff manager has apparently come out today or yesterday and said, I'm afraid a lot of our fans are clueless.
That's going to win him a lot of friends, isn't it? No,
he probably didn't mean it in the way it's come across, but I think he was asked about the sort of the social media sort of vitriol that he's been getting and this that, and the other. And he's kind of trying to say it should be aimed at me, not the players. I'm the manager; they're individuals, and he's trying to take a bit of heat off the players. But in doing so, he's managed to call the fans clueless, which won't go down very well. He's not going to get very good reception at the next game tomorrow, is he? Or at the next home game.
Well, what's he going to say about the owners then if they replace him with a 76-year-old
Well,
I nearly said has
Yeah.
been. That's unkind, so I won't say has been. But they pull him into the corner and they say, "Hey boyo, quick!" I'll do the Welsh accent because it's funny. "Oi boyo, over here. You're being replaced. We found someone much better than you." Neil Warnock is his name. It's going to grate, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
If it happens.
I mean, I think it probably won't happen. It's probably but it's probably agents talking. It's probably not going to happen. If it did, it might happen and be one of those sort of blindingly good, sort of panicky but good. Sort of theories that actually he comes in and it's so unexpected and
new manager syndrome
done and they win their last 4.
New manager syndrome does work, and if he stands on a chair in the dressing room at 10 to 3 and starts tub thumping and carouseling and everything, I don't know. I remember hearing him being interviewed one time he made a comeback. And I think it was one of the Sheffields he went to. This is going back 10 years, and he said. Nobody spoke to me. He said, "I heard I was the new manager. I was listening to my radio whilst I was driving the tractor."
last to know he'd been appointed.
Driving the tractor, which I think he's got a farm down West Country way or something. But anyway,
yeah, he's probably better off sticking to the farm now. But he might come back and he maybe he's still got a little bit of he knows how to keep a team up. But could he do it over in the space of 4 games? I don't know. It's asking a lot, isn't it?
It is, especially since Cardiff have got the run-in that they've got. But anyway, so
he's quite a character.
Let's get onto the pitch, shall we? Can I confront you with yet another unprepared question, which is, what would your 11 be against Norwich?
Well, that's difficult to answer because we don't quite know about some of the injury situations, do we? I was just having a look before we started speaking today at Jordan Cross's predicted 11, because he often gets these 11s right, or he gets 9 out of 10 right, and he thinks that Rob Atkinson will be okay to play. I think the manager has indicated that Atkinson should be okay for 1 game at Easter, but probably not 2. So you would think if that's the case, he'll probably play the first one and then he'll see how he is after 72 hours rest. So the predicted lineup that I've seen is Schmidt in goal, obviously Swanson and Ogilvie the fullbacks, Poole and Atkinson in the centre of defence, Potts and Dazal again in the centre of midfield, Ritchie, Murphy. He's got O'Sheesh coming back in to the problem position as it's become. We've struggled, haven't we, since Callum Lang got injured to know who to play in there. They've all had a go, haven't they? You and me are next on the list, I think.
Did you think that Sadie nearly did enough to get that starting place?
I didn't. I must admit, I didn't.
Okay.
No. Would have been different if he'd taken that little chance when he went through, didn't he, at the Milton End first half. If that had gone in, we'd all be...
He worked it himself. I'm batting for him now. He worked it himself, that chance. There were 3 defenders between him and the goal when he sort of got possession, and he just played rugby a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. He's so strong, isn't he? And he does have a certain... does bring a certain something to the team, but I thought there were quite long periods of that game last week where we didn't really see him, or he didn't get into the game.
Do you go along with Cross then, O'Sheesh?
Well, I quite like Devlin. I think when Devlin played up there, he did okay. I like his energy, and he's there fighting for the cause, isn't he? And he's another Atkinson, isn't he? If he could have a bandage wrapped around his head and another one around his knee, and he'd still be on the pitch at the end. So I might go for Devlin over O'Sheesh, and obviously that leaves you with Bishop up front. Of course, what we don't know, we don't know how much of the last 4 games Atkinson is due to play. The manager also spoke about Connor Shaughnessy, didn't he? Saying not ready for Easter, but we might see a bit of him at Sheffield Wednesday. And he also spoke about Callum Lang. Did you see that? It was interesting.
Yes, but I'd like to get your take on that.
So everybody, I think when Lang was first injured at Oxford, wasn't it? It was pretty quick that we were told that's it, that's his season over, and people kind of accepted that and thought, oh well, that's a blow, but we'll have to do without him. And actually, I've got a theory on Lang. I think we've missed Lang at this end of the season as much as we missed Bishop at the start of the season.
Yes, good
really
point.
I do think it's, I know we've had a couple of wins since then. We beat QPR, we beat Leeds, and we beat Blackburn with Lang watching from the stands, but we haven't been quite as fluent and we haven't been quite as dominant at home. And I think Lang has somewhere said something himself about wanting to play again before the season's out. So the manager was asked about it this season and said very unlikely, because he said what you've got to consider, whereas you might, if you've got a defender who's 90% fit, you might put him in and he'll know what to do and he won't do anything silly. But he's almost suggesting that Callum Lang, as soon as you let Callum Lang start a game, he'll be tearing around the pitch and chasing everything, going in for 50-50 balls and risking doing himself another injury. And he means that in a nice way, but that is Lang, isn't it? He is that sort of player. That's what makes him what he is. So I still wouldn't be surprised if we saw him somewhere, maybe even in the last game. If there's something riding on the last game, give everybody a lift by putting him in the team sheet or even on the bench. Gives you something, doesn't it?
I think you've got that one cracked. I agree with everything you say, and I'm sure the listener does as
we'd love to see him, but
as well.
Let's not get carried away.
Did you spot that John Messino revealed that on occasions when he was a centre half, and he knows that this goes on still in the game, because the centre half is the job that it is, he said there are times when a centre half can simply go through the game. And I think what he meant was never have to sprint.
No, that's right. Just do what you have to do. Defend, track your man, but you don't have to you don't have to go on any lung busting runs, do you? To the halfway line. Even if you're a playing out from the back sort of team, you can still do that and find the midfielder. It was interesting, and that was kind of part of where he was comparing bringing defenders back right as soon as they're able to, compared to bringing back somebody like Callum Lang. It's two different positions, isn't it, and jobs.
Totally. Now we're heading towards the end of the season, and after the end of the season, there's a charity match at Fratton Park, which is in honour of Alan Knight, and we're due to be speaking to Alan Knight and promoting it a little bit further down the road. And here's a question I want him to answer, but I'm going to ask it of you now. Okay. Nicola Schmidt has only been with us for about 20 minutes. The Portsmouth goalkeeper, and yet he's already got at least 2 official assists.
Yes.
To his name. Yeah. Now Alan Knight played 87,000 times for Pompey.
87,001, I think. But
that last game, yeah. Did he ever get any assists?
I reckon he must have got.
Do you think so?
That's a very good question, and he'll answer it. He'll probably invent a few if he did for you. He could. I mean, in his day, we quite often used to attack with him taking the long drop kick. Very much route one.
Yeah, but he was inside the area. He never. I don't think he ever kicked the ball from outside the area.
No,
in Venom, maybe doing a clearance if somebody was charging down on him, booting it into the sea.
He was not someone for coming out of his area and having the ball at his feet for 10 seconds and thinking about which defender. No, it wasn't done in his day, was it?
I've looked at Atkinson's second goal time and time again, and I can't be certain, so I won't pretend I am. But I swear there's a chance that Schmidt picked him out. Maybe,
yeah. I mean, some of Schmidt's long balls, from his own half have done that this season. What was the other one? The other one was to Lang, wasn't it? Against it was the night game against Stoke, I think, wasn't it? That's his other assist, where he played it.
Yes.
Played it long. It bounced. The Stoke defender let it bounce. Lang went through. The keeper to and score. Yeah. So it's quite impressive, isn't it? I mean, we've got outfield players that haven't got 2 assists this season.
He's very accurate. He generally, if they take a short goal kick, he'll bring it forward and he will look for Bishop, and you can see him looking up, looking at him. Colby will usually go to the left if their right back is shorter than their left back. So, and also it's easier for a right footer. And let's bear in mind, Schmidt is totally ambidextrous. He can kick equally well.
Yes, he does. Yeah, that's true.
Both feet, which is no mean feat. No pun intended there. But anyway,
Very, very good. Above my head, that one.
I almost missed it, and I did it. Let's focus then on Norwich first of all. And a good way to get our head around that is to ask you for the dreaded prediction this early in our chat.
I should have learnt my lesson by now, because time and time again.
Yeah.
What do they say about you keep doing the same things and hoping for different results, a sign of madness or something?
No, they say a dog returns to its own vomit, but I'm not going to repeat that on Pompey Sound.
I should be we're away from home, so I should be predicting that it'll be 0-0 and they'll score in the last 15 minutes.
I've already written down my prediction of what you're going to predict.
So it begins with D and ends with W.
Yeah.
I think we might get a draw.
And the score?
I know I shouldn't. I mean, I'm even as I'm saying it, I'm thinking I'm going to be sitting here at 4:47 on Good Friday, and it'll be 2-2, and then of course they'll get one. No, I'm going to go 1-1.
I've written it down. Yay! I wrote down 1-1. I should have taken a screenshot of it.
Glad I'm so predictable.
No, well,
1-1, and let me go for a goal score. I think Freddie Potts is due a goal. I think he's going to strike up at Carrow Road.
He's a real You could go on.
And if we get a point, as I always say, if we get a point at Norwich, whatever anybody else does on the day, that'll be good. I'll be dancing around the living room. I'll be happy with that.
I've started shouting, if I'm watching on television, anybody in earshot, if Freddie Potts takes more than 2 touches, because he takes 2 touches. You give him the ball and he'll control it and he'll immediately lay it off. That means he can't get caught from behind. So he's protecting his own ankles. There's that. Yeah. But also, what it means is that he is aware of the movements of his teammates before the ball is even
that's true.
passed to him. He knows what he'll do with it, and I gather that this is an important part of modern professional football. You know what you would do if you were given the ball at any given moment out of the blue. You'll know that Colby is free going on the left. Murphy's come a little bit deeper, so he'll want it to feet. He won't want it. You'll be computing that all the time. But Freddie Potts is 10 seconds ahead of everybody else, I think.
There are players that seem to know what their teammates are going to do and where they are without looking. They can be looking in a completely different direction, but they know if they play a 30-yard pass up the left touchline, there'll be somebody there on the end of it. And that's a great asset to have, isn't it? And I do think Potts has a bit of that. I
thought Wayne Rooney had that in buckets. For all his normal human failings, because he's not, he's not Einstein, and he's had his ups and downs. But it seemed to me that he knew where all 22 players, besides him, or people on the pitch, the other 22, including the referee, he knew where they were, and he knew what they were thinking. He knew where they were. What they were.
That's half of it, isn't it?
Yeah, he could sense that
he was one step ahead of the game.
In 2 seconds' time, he's going to be there. He's going to be there. He's going to be there. And so, if the ball bang suddenly comes to me, I'll do that. And that you can't teach that.
No, you can't. No, it's a natural thing,
I don't
isn't it?
think.
And if you've got that, you're a step ahead. Yeah.
1-1. There's only 3 games left after this.
I know. Yeah.
Are we going?
I still think we need 4 points from. If we get 4 points from these last 4, I think we'll be all right. We may need fewer than that, but I think 4 points definitely. And I don't know if you're going to ask me about Watford on Easter Monday.
I'm going to ask you about all the last 3 games, actually. So let's start with Watford. That's the Monday, isn't it? That's the.
Yeah, I think that is going to be the one. Yeah, Easter Monday, 3:00. That is going to be the one where we win, and pretty much safe at the end of the afternoon, I think.
Okay.
Which would be lovely with 2 games to spare. Pompey being Pompey will probably prolong the agony for longer than that until the last minute of the Hull game. I've still got visions of us being 1-0 up against Hull and Kamara bearing down on Schmidt in the last minute, and that's what the season comes down to. But hopefully not. I think we'll beat Watford. Wasn't that impressed with Watford up there, because I went to that game on Boxing Day and they had a bit of help from the ref. And they won it in injury time. We were a bit unlucky. I think they are beatable, and I think that could be the one.
I wonder who we're sending to have a look at our opponents the next but one game on. So in other words, who will be attending the Watford game on Friday to watch them on our behalf? Obviously, John will be patrolling the touchline for us against Norwich. But we'll be sending someone, won't we? I do know that I saw an interview with John, I think before we were due to play Wycombe, and he was saying how dangerous Wycombe can be and what a good side they are and how well organised they are. And he was saying all that for the cameras and also for the benefit of his players. But behind the scenes, I was talking to somebody who went to watch Wycombe with him because they had a midweek game, and he went with this bloke. And the bloke said, actually, what John said after the game was that Wycombe were rubbish.
That's a considered opinion.
Yeah, but on camera, it's very well organised, very dangerous side. Take nothing for granted. All that,
say all the right things.
All that guff, Off the record, we'll murder them.
Rubbish.
Rubbish.
Which we didn't, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, he didn't use the word rubbish. I don't want to be...
No.
He didn't say rubbish.
No.
He said something along the lines of...
Didn't use a Pompey sound.
No, he did not use... he did not say anything derogatory. No. But off the record, he did say that they were not very well organised and very dangerous.
Yeah.
So it just, it's interesting, isn't it, to get those sort of little insights. So Watford, you think, is going to be the turning point, and we're going to be able to turn up at Fratton Park v Hull with no burden of fear or hope or expectation?
Yeah, maybe Hull will as well. Maybe it'll be done by then. Maybe Luton, Derby and Plymouth will all have... Luton, Plymouth and Cardiff, bottom three at the moment, aren't they? Maybe they will be gone by then. We will see.
OK, so let's say we're staying up. I know you shouldn't, and I know we've actually run out of time, but I can't stop listening to you. Let's say we stay up. Can you name any individuals or profile any type of player that you think will cost money, but we're going to have to do it if we're not going to have another season biting our nails?
Yeah, I'd struggle to name an individual because I don't look at other club. To be blunt, I don't look at other clubs and who's doing well for them that much. But I just think it's not necessarily the Bishop role, and it's not necessarily the Lang role, but I do think we need another player who has played at Championship level who can be as effective as Bishop or Lang, or both of them put together.
I think that's spot on.
If you just add that to the match day 20, not necessarily somebody who's starting every week even, but if you've got somebody else there at that level. And even you might even say at the Matt Ritchie level as well. We've seen in certain times of the season how he can influence a game and grab it by the scruff of the neck. I think we need somebody who can score a few goals, because the goals haven't been shared around all that well really this season. We need somebody who can score goals, create openings, is going to get through a whole season injury free. That's nice, isn't it? If we can.
That one's. That would be nice to buy a player who was guaranteed to be injury free for 46 games, whatever it is. Can I just throw one name at you to wind this one up and yet at the same time sharpen the conversation? Alex Robertson. Sorry about that.
Talk about him. Are you saying yes or no?
I'm wondering whether we know we miss him, and we know we might not have Freddie Potts.
Yeah.
He knows the territory. We know what he can do.
Yeah. I think we could do a lot worse. I think Messino knows him. He knows Messino.
If they go down, if Cardiff go down,
there
might be a clause in his contract. You don't know.
Yep. I think we could do a lot worse. There's going to be some who will say he's a bit fragile, and are we going to lose him after 2 months for the rest of the season again? But that's a risk you get with any player these days.
Even Superman's vulnerable to kryptonite. There's no such thing as an uninjurable player, is there?
You can't do it, can you? You can't buy a player you know is not going to get injured. So
no back heels on the training ground would be written into his contract.
Yeah, definitely worth considering. Probably have considered him and probably thought of that eventuality, I would think, because they'll be talking about different players now. Wouldn't rule it out, but also wouldn't put all my eggs in the Robertson basket.
As ever, Steve, if you're listening on air, Steve's chat is available as a podcast. If you're listening to Steve's podcast, there's plenty of other stuff available to podcast as well. And we, as a radio station, are available on DAB, digital, smart speaker, and certain washing machines that are malfunctioning. Yes, I've got an air conditioning unit that plays Radio 2. No, it does. I'm not joking. I googled it.
Very well, I'm sure.
I googled it. It's a common problem amongst air conditioners. Yes,
we need to get Pompey sound coming out of people's air conditioning.
Yeah,
they won't be able to get away from it in the summer.
Always a delight, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Archie, and love to the family, as they say of Colin in Portsmouth. I don't know if you're familiar with that YouTube.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Love to the family then, Steve.
And to yours.